Hello there everyone, I'm Albz, and today we're taking a look at some stories from the r/MaliciousCompliance subreddit. So get yourself a cup of coffee or get yourself a cup of tea and let's jump right in. This happened when I was in my second final year of high school. I was the brainy kid. I was in the music program, represented our school at the maths and chemistry competitions, and was never in trouble. One of the teachers at the school, let's call him Mr. Blue, had it in me from my first day at the school, due to some trouble he had with my father some years earlier. My father was a teacher too, and he had called him out on some bullshit that had left Mr. Blue with a chip on his shoulder for me the size of a redwood. Anyway, another teacher, who we will call Mr. Green, was the AV, audiovisual teacher at the school, and my friend and I were his prize pupils. We spent most lunch times and before school squirreled away with him in the AV section of the school, tinkering with something or another. When the principal of the school asked Mr. Green to do the lighting and sound effects for the end of the year assembly, he asked if we wanted to help, and of course we jumped at the chance. Now the school had a large gymnasium, with a control booth for the lighting and sound. Everything from microphones, speakers and lighting went through this booth. Once we knew what each class was going to do, and the order in which they were going to do it, we spent hours setting up the lighting and sequencing, often in our own time. This took pretty much all of our spare time for the 3 months leading up to the assembly itself. The end of the year assembly was a big thing at our school. Come a week before the assembly, and Mr. Green managed to injure himself badly in a motorcycle accident and wound up in hospital. Though stricken, my friend and I knew that we could still run the lights and sounds in the gym, so as usual, the next lunchtime we were in the control booth. Enter Mr. Blue. "What are you boys doing in the control booth?" "We're setting up for the assembly, sir." "You cannot be in here without a teacher present. Leave now." But Mr. Green said, "Mr. Green is in the hospital, I don't care what he said. You will leave now, and if I see either of you in here again, I will have you both suspended. But if we don't finish..." "Did you not hear what I said?" I gave my friend a look that said, "We're not going to win this," shrugged my shoulders and replied, "Yes sir." He and I gathered our things and left. My first thought was to take this up with the principal of the school. But Mr. Blue had been getting up my nose for about 4 years now, and after some furious thinking came up with a plan. I explained said plan to my friend, who agreed to it, and thus we both kept our mouths shut and answered "great" to anyone who asked how the special effects were going. Fast forward to the night of the assembly. Several hundred parents and most of the teachers had turned up for the concert. As usual for such things, the lowest grades act would come first, and they nervously shuffled onto stage. I switched on the microphone in the control booth. "Good evening, parents, teachers and fellow students, and welcome to the end of the year assembly." I could see several teachers look up at the control booth, as this was not a part of the script. "I would have liked to dedicate this evening to Mr. Green, who is recovering in hospital from a motorcycle accident. But I can't. Instead, I would like to dedicate this evening to Mr. Blue. Due to his constructive and diligent enforcement of school policy, there will be no music, lighting or sound effects tonight. I'm sure this will not detract from the otherwise quality entertainment you will see on stage. Unfortunately, also due solely to Mr. Blue, there will be no microphones available for either the singers or actors you see tonight. Nor will any recordings be available, as we were not allowed to set them up either." At this point, several teachers, including Mr. Blue and the principal, have stood up, but it's now far too late. Nonetheless, I hope you all enjoy tonight's entertainment and make a special effort to thank Mr. Blue for his efforts in making this the best end of the year assembly this school has ever witnessed. I then switched off the microphone and laid it with my friend out the back entrance before any of the teachers could reach the control room. We got a fair amount of grief from the principal and VP, but as we hadn't technically done anything wrong, we received no punishment. Mr. Blue did not turn up to school the next year, and we heard he took a long service leave early. When Mr. Green returned to school the next year, he laughed so hard he almost burst the blood vessel. Apparently there was no love lost there either. I think I might have actually found my new favorite subreddit. The stories on here are great. I think it's kinda sad that Mr. Blue took out his quarrel with the guy's father on the kid. I don't think you should ever involve other people's kids in like your quarrels. That's an incredibly immature thing to do, but it seems like they did get a good bit of revenge there, and that's a prime example of malicious compliance. I used to work in a flaking operation at a chemical plant. Flaking is a process where a chemical is turned into small flakes about the size and general shape of cornflake cereal. If you've ever had a chocolate-dipped ice cream cone, you have an idea of how the flakes are made. The chemical is heated until it melts, then the liquid is pumped into a large tub. A large metal cylinder is suspended over the tub so that one side is in the liquid. Think of turning that ice cream cone sideways and lowering it just far enough for the ice cream to dip into the chocolate. The cylinder is chilled from the inside, so it's cold like the ice cream. Once it's in the chemical bath, the chemical freezes onto the surface of the cylinder, just like the chocolate creates a shell on the ice cream. The cylinder is rotated, so a clean surface is being dipped into the chemical, while a large blade scrapes solid chemical off the other side. The scraped off material forms flakes which fall down a chute and into a machine which puts it into bags. How well the process works depends on the temperature of the chemical, the temperature of the cylinder, the air temperature and the humidity. Get it all working right and the operators can bag up to 20 tons of the chemical in one 8-hour shift. Our record was 22 tons. Get it wrong and the chemical turns into a vapor. When that happens, the vapor floats around inside the machine, then solidify in places where they weren't meant to be, forming stalactites everywhere. If it goes on too long, the machine binds up and the operators have to shut it down to clean out all the solid chemical and start over again. The cleanup process can take several hours and puts production way behind. Finding the right balance is an art and my team had it down pat. Because we were so good at it, the company sent down some engineers to observe us and record all of the variables. Input temperatures, coolant temperatures, feed rate, rotation speed, etc. They then came up with some process charts which were supposed to help the other teams make adjustments so their production levels would come up. A monitoring process was set up so management could review everything. It required the team lead to record all of the gauge readings every half hour. During one evening shift, the foreman came in to check on our process charts. As the team lead, I was responsible for tracking the setting and making adjustments as necessary. At mid-shift, we were on track to match or beat our previous record. The foreman noted that the chemical temperature was lower than spec, but we were having a cool, dry night and everything was running well, so I didn't see a need to make an adjustment. Remember, this process is much as art as science, and we were the guys they observed to write the specs. Of course, the foreman told me to adjust the chemical temperature up. I refused. That led to a shouting match on the production floor. I finally agreed to make the adjustments if he signed the paperwork. He refused. So, on the paperwork I wrote, chemical feed temperature increased per foreman's instructions. He tried to get me to rewrite the entire process sheet so it didn't have that note on it, but I refused and told him I had to get back to work, which I did. Half an hour later, the machine bound up as I predicted. We had to shut down and clean everything out. Our production for the night was 16 tons, 2 tons less than the average crew, 4 tons less than our normal output. The shipment that was scheduled for the next day didn't leave on time because we didn't have enough material ready. When the plant manager asked what happened, he could clearly see from the paperwork that the foreman screwed up the production. That was the last time the foreman told us how to run our equipment. I think this is a good example of why different people have different jobs. I'm not sure if you have ever heard the expression, you learn your job at the job, which basically means you learn how to do your job while you're doing the job. If you haven't done a job before, you have no idea how to do it and you have to learn it, and you learn by doing it. And I think that little saying applies perfectly here. That's gonna be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching and I really do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do leave a like and maybe subscribe if you'd like some more of this type of content. The background GIF is made by a guy called Dave Whyte. You can find him at beesandbombs on Twitter. And again, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.